Morning, everybody. It's Saturday, November 10th, 2018. Getting ready to do a flea market finds series here. Last weekend, ended up going to the Thompson International Speedway in Thompson, Connecticut for their annual swap meet. It's pretty big. Normally, it's really big. And it's an annual thing. It's only once a year, and it's always in November. So it's a really great place to go pick up deals on tools and equipment. Every once in a while, you'll find some machinist items there. Let me start off by apologizing for my appearance this morning. It's a Saturday morning sneak down for me. I haven't done one of these in a while, but it's pretty darn early in the morning. But it's the weekend with the kids in the house and everything, and the noise. It's kind of hard to shoot video without any ambient background noise. Anyways, actually just had to delay the start of this video because my sump pump was just firing off. We had quite a bit of rain last weekend, and it rained quite a bit again last night. The water table is very high here in Massachusetts, in our area. Ground is saturated. There's actually water coming up under the basement floor. If it wasn't for the sump, I'd be having a flood right now. And there's areas where the water's coming out and onto the road and running down the sides of the road. So it looks like springtime is what it looks like. So the good news is all this rain isn't early snow, because if it were, we would have a ton of snow. I'm hoping this is not an indicator of things to come, because if it is, then we're looking at a very lousy winter here in New England, which we can get those. The thing about New England is, the saying here is, if you don't like the weather, just wait, because it's sure to change. So the swap meet starts on Friday. There's your early, like you can get an early pass or something like that, but it's mostly vendors setting up on Friday. So the main show really starts, the main swap meet really starts at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. So I like to try and get there early. And so I set my alarm, get up extra early, and make sure I get there on time for the opening. And there's usually a line to get in. And it's 15 bucks entry, or is it 12 bucks? I forget. 12 or 15 bucks to get in. So didn't take the boys with me this time, because it ends up being they get bored after a while, and then you figure in paying for the four of us to get in, that's like 50 bucks, and then 50 or 60 bucks entry fee, and then inevitably you're going to end up having lunch in there at one of the vendors that set up in there, and it's the typical vendor prices that you see at any kind of a show like that, or a race or anything. So needless to say, it's a little pricey. So I woke up early to the sound of just a torrential downpour. And I had already seen the forecast the night before, and it was rain. And I was thinking, oh, well, hey, I'm going to bring my rain gear, maybe scoop some deals, take my chances. It was just downpour. I mean, it was ridiculous. Raining cats and dogs, as they say. So ended up going back to sleep for a couple hours. I think I ended up getting up somewhere around 7. Took a shower, headed out, and ended up getting there probably around 8 a.m. Still raining, but the rain it had lightened up. So I put on my rain gear and headed in. First thing we realized, we being me and the little mouse in my pocket. I don't know why I just said we. I think because I met a couple of guys walking in, and we were talking, and we were noticing the traffic was really light going in. There was no line of cars that you had to wait through to get in. Parking, there was parking. It wasn't 5 miles away. Parking was close enough so you could within a 3-minute walk. Excuse me. You were at the gate. So we get in there, and the first thing we realize is that there's actually quite a few vendors that look like they didn't even show up at all. A lot of empty areas. B, I mean, it's possible also those vendors were just relocated and crammed in somewhere else, because there were areas where they had cones, so you wouldn't go walking over there, as if you needed to know not to walk over there. There was basically a miniature lake had formed. So They use they have vendors set up all on the track. They have vendors set up in the pits. They have vendors set up in the inside of the oval, and they have vendors set up in the outside area where they normally have all concessions and everything. So it's a big show. So the problem is they were still charging full boat for the admission, and you get in there and you got vendors that weren't there. And you get vendors, you know, some of the vendors it looked like they came and set up on Friday and then just covered everything that they had and left and hadn't come in yet. So it ended up being kind of a long day. I ended up, right off the bat, I ended up seeing something that I liked, made an offer on it, and the guy basically, he said he was going to hold out. He countered, and he was going to hold out at that price because he was holding out on Sunday being a better day. He figured that even if today ended up being a blowout for him, he was going to hold out because he knew that that particular item, which we're going to get to, that particular item was going to probably bring the money that it should. And needless to say, by the end of the day, I had gone over and agreed to his price. So anyways, well, actually, I did get 25 bucks off. That was my big ticket item of the day. Let's clear off the bench top here. What we got on the bench top right now are all the pieces for the throttle linkage and bell crank assembly for the Dodge Cummins. Ended up picking up a couple more parts here, but we're still waiting on a couple parts. So I figure I'll just clear the bench, get this out of the way, and we could start doing this flea market finds. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned the date. I know it's November 10th right now. I don't expect this to air until close to the end of November because videos are stacking up. Because I've started that. I've got this Dodge series working on this Dodge problem, and then I've got. I started this steel blower because I really wanted to use it for this fall. It's starting to look like that might not happen. That might end up being a basket case. I don't know. We're going to find out. I'll finish my coffee. We'll clear off the bench, and we'll hop into some of these flea market finds. I got a couple of items. I got a buy off of the internet on one item for the lathe, which well, you'll see. Don't need it, but had to buy it. Not really had to, just did. That's the one item there. I got just 3 lousy items from the used tool store, and then we'll hop into the swap meet finds, which are some nicer, some cooler deals. Let's put it that way. So before we get right into the Thompson Speedway swap meet finds, I want to just get a couple of other items out of the way. Those of you who have seen my Vernon lathe, you'll know that I have an Elora tool post on there, and it's a model CA size, which is for like 16 to 20 inch swing lathes, and the Vernon is a 14-inch swing lathe, so it's actually a little too big for that lathe, and the perfect size for that lathe would be the CXA, which is the next size down from the CA. The nomenclature on size for the Elora tool posts is not entirely confusing, but it's, I forgot what the really small size is, and then there's AXA, BXA, CXA, and then it goes to CA, and then I think there's a DA. Anywho, so it's a little too big for the lathe, but I got a really good deal on it with a bunch of holders, and then I was able to buy some more holders off of somebody off Practical Machinist website. So I have quite a few holders for it, and I found that even though it's a little too large, I can actually set the holder down low enough on the wedge to actually make it work for my purposes. So I've been living with that, pining for the day when I actually am able to score a original Elora CXA tool post. I even have a couple of odd CXA holders that I've been holding on to in the hopes that I will eventually get that tool post. In the meantime, this popped up on the internet.
and I got a really good deal on it, so I jumped on it. And the funny thing is, it's another CA. It's actually the same exact tool post that I have now. So why buy it? Well, I bought it because it's in really, really good shape. And although mine is perfectly serviceable, it's a little bit rougher around the edges. And I honestly think that I can sell mine for at least as much as what I paid for this one. And in the end, I'll put this one on, and essentially it'll be like a free upgrade in condition. Quality's the same, really. So it's just a it's not a necessary purchase, but it's not a purchase I'm going to get hurt from doing. It's this one is in really, really nice shape, and you can see there's only like the slightest amount of marks on the handle here, and no marks on this side. Smooth as glass operation, and my other one's, you know, really smooth too. But let me show you the other one. So here's my current CA tool post on the Vernon, and you can see how far I have to actually drop this down on the wedge in order for me to make it work on the center line with this lathe. So I mean, this should really be up around here, ideally. So it's close, but it's not quite right. But this has been a really good tool post for me. It's worked flawlessly. It's in pretty good condition, but this handle's got quite a few puck marks on the back side here, where somebody obviously, to tighten it, instead of just relying on this, was hitting it with a hammer, or not a hammer, probably a wrench more than likely. So, and the only other thing wrong with this, so to speak, is it's missing the coveted little red badge here that has the Elora's name and part number. However, you can still tell that it's genuine Elora's because it does have the Elora's emblem embossed right on the top here. So this is not it's not a copy. This is not a Chinese clone or an import clone. This is the genuine thing. So anyway, so that's going to be going to market soon. Next up, I've been hitting the used tool store, not every single week, but every once in a while, see if I can catch a deal on something. He had gotten in a machinist toolbox that he'd cleaned out, and he dumped a bunch of stuff. And one of the items, well, first let me just get these two things out of the way. So I happened to spot up on the shelf, I spotted this this Torx drive, and it's a post tool. Okay, and it says, oh, today's tool leader, Post Tools. I have no idea who makes this, but right now, for some of these larger Torx sizes, I'm relegated to using just a bit that I have to then put in a 1/4-inch driver to use. And sometimes you get in a situation like on that steel blower where you want to get down inside a hole, and it's a real pain in the butt to do it with an extension and a bit. Even if you can get down in the hole, sometimes the bit comes off. So I wanted to get some, you know, eventually I'd like to have a whole complete set of these. This one, unfortunately, is a T30 size. I was hoping it was a T26, but it's a T30. But I only paid $1 for that, so I'll add that to the few other sizes that I have, and eventually we'll have a mismatch, probably set. Size-wise, but they'll just be all mongrels. But hey, for that price. And then he had featured in the video quite a few Klein tools. For those of you not familiar with the name Klein, Klein Tools is considered the professional tool of electricians. And I actually have a few Klein screwdrivers that I've had over the years that I really like. They tend to have this, all the handles on the Kleins tend to be similar like this. They tend to be this plastic material here with this overlay made out of some sort of rubber. And what's nice about Klein tools is they tend to have really my experience has been they tend to have really good tips. So he had several nut drivers, Klein nut drivers, all for like $2 a piece, and I was like, oh. So I went and looked for those after I had gotten done weeding through all of the Starrett scales that I ended up not buying, only to find this was the only thing left. And then I saw a guy there who I know buys, he buys a lot of hand tools when he comes there, and he must have a business selling them online or something, because it's weird how he's there like every week buying tools. So I mentioned to him, I said, geez, I said, did you end up buying all of the nut drivers? And he said, yeah. He said another guy bought, there was a couple screwdrivers, but he bought all the nut drivers. And I showed him this, and I said, just curious, how come you didn't take this? And he says, oh, well, he says it's a square drive, so he didn't really see the point in it. And the funny thing is, this is actually a really good tool if you're going to do any electrical work. And he didn't realize it, but the reason why you want a square drive if you're an electrician is because if you look at the screws, like in my square D panels now, all of the screws on the bus bar and the neutral bar, and I think even some of the breaker screws, they're dual head. They've got like a slot in them so you can use a regular screwdriver on them, but they have a square hole so you can use one of these, and you can get a much more positive purchase on that screw head when you're tightening it. There's virtually no chance that the blade is going to slip out of the slot on you while you're turning it, which is kind of a pain. And if you've got limited visibility there, you can lock this in and you can feel that it's still in and tighten it, and no problem. So that was $2 for a Klein square drive. So I thought that was a good deal. $2 for any Klein tool in this kind of condition is a good deal, square drive or not. So I mentioned he had cleaned out a bunch of, actually I think he said there was a bunch of stuff in the back he had cleaned out, and he threw like miscellaneous machinist items in a tray, and he said everything in there was $6 a piece. So I went through, and there were several indicators in there that were broken, Mitutoyos, for instance, just completely broken, not working at all. A few other little items in there, and then I spotted this Starrett indicator, and I was like, oh, that must be broken because it's in there, right? So this is the number 709A, half thousandths Starrett indicator. This is actually a pretty decent indicator. It's engraved on the side here. Dovetails look okay. It's got this nice long pin on it, and here's the thing. It's a little slow returning. Okay? But it works. It returns to 0 pretty much almost every time. So it's a little sticky. Might need a little TLC. But I mean, come on. Any Starrett indicator for $6 is a steal. This was calibrated back in 2006, November of 06, and it was due in November of 07. Like MR Tool Repair. This might be a really good candidate to send to him. He could work his magic on this thing for sure. Should see if I have a case for that. I think I have. Yeah, I still have these. I have these Brown and Sharp cases that I picked up. Empty cases. That's not really. I don't know. Well, that's actually not bad. Well, anyways. So I thought that was a good deal. That was the best deal I've gotten at the tool store in a while. I don't know, that deal on that Starrett scale from the last episode of Flea Market Finds, that actually was a pretty good deal for $20, I think. Anyways, all right, so let's move on to the Thompson swap meet, where it poured rain. So the first dealer that I happened across that had several items that caught my eye, all of his stuff was in the process of being washed by the rain and planning and soon to be getting their next coating of rust applied. And he was sitting in his truck, staying out of the rain, and basically talking through a half-open window to his partner, you know, giving him the skinny on what to put where and what he wanted for certain things. So he ended up eventually coming out of the truck and talking with me because I was interested in several things that I came across, but I was kind of, you know, feigning interest because I really get finicky and cheap in my old age. So what I ended up doing was I asked about several items, got some prices from him on several items, and instead of committing to them right away, started kind of tallying them in my head and then put together a bundle. I did like Frank on American Pickers there. I'm a bundler. So anyways, so I ended up getting all of these items in the box here and this item here, all for one money. And I do remember vaguely what this broke down to in the end. And the important thing to keep in mind here is that this needs to be cleaned up. There's actually a light coating of grease on this post, so this post is actually in a lot better shape than it looks. Should clean up pretty decent. This is going to need a little bit more attention, but this is actually a nice test indicator stand, and this is a Federal Model 35B-30. It's a good beefy drop indicator stand. And then when we were talking about, you know, what he needed to get for it, what he wanted to get for it and everything, it was this indicator. It's so dirty, I couldn't even make out who made the thing at the time. And my concern was that he actually thought there was, you know, that this indicator had value to it. And I promptly pointed out that it was very, very stiff when I saw it that day. And in fact, now it doesn't want to move at all. So I'm wondering if water got inside here. The indicator intrigued me, but I really didn't see any value in it. I really just wanted the stand. So in the end, I got this stand for $10 with this indicator on it, and at least that's the way I figure it shaked out. I ended up getting this for $10, and if he was going to want more because of the indicator, I was going to just take the indicator off and hand it to him, because I just wanted this stand. I think it's a pretty nice stand, and I think it's going to clean up pretty decent. So I'm just curious how LA's Awesome does on this color. Oh yeah, that's cleaning up real nice, actually. You know, it's got rust down here and that, so it's not perfect, but I mean, this is it's a honey for the money, I'd say. So the only question is, can the top of this, oh yeah, see, there's some kind of a, whatever that goop was that somebody put on the post here to keep it from rusting. Looks like they put it on this base too, so I think that's gonna wipe off. Let that penetrate just for a second. Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Look at that. Geez, I could see what looked like the lapping or scraping marks or whatever you call them there still in that. Boy, that's nice. You know, the only thing wrong with this is that now I've just basically taken that protective coating off, and that's going to flash rust down here in my basement. Although we're into the winter months, normally by now the basement would be drying out, but we had so much rain this fall. You know what, maybe just put a little, we'll just put a little PB blaster on there to a light film of that. So let's look at this indicator. So I could kind of just make out the symbol here, and I could see that this was a indicator that had multiple dials. It had a sub-dial, so I thought, oh, this might be kind of a neat one, but I have no idea what the name brand is yet. Let's clean it up together and see. Well, I got excited there for a second because I thought that was going to clean up to be spotless, but it's got a whole section of... Oh, wait a minute. No, hold on. A little bit more elbow grease, and this is coming off down in the corner here. All right. It's cleaning up nice. Now the question is it worth a damn bit? Well, that's a new one. This is a DATCON Instrument Company indicator, model 2CN100-10. DATCON, never heard of that one. It's a thousandths indicator. Huh. If those are any good. I figure the way you can tell if it's any good is if anybody pays any money for one on eBay. Well, we may never know what this thing's worth. DATCON apparently is a pretty major manufacturer in instrument gauges like tachometers and things like that, hour meters. But apparently, they're not well known for dial indicators, drop indicators like this, because there are currently none for sale on eBay, and I look at sold auctions and nothing comes up for indicators. Of course, eBay doesn't go back as far as it used to. It used to be you could search sold and it would go back quite a bit further and you'd have a lot more returns. Unfortunately, eBay doesn't do that any longer, so it makes it kind of tougher to research stuff that's hard to find or unusual. Unfortunately, like I said, this is locked up tight. I don't want to force it. All right, well, I did force it, but I didn't break it. But I did get it to free up, so I'm just going to clean this rod and then put just the littlest drop of light machine oil on there. Actually, all I did was clean this, and it's now operating correctly. I gotta, let's see, this little ferrule, this little, there you go. Nothing wrong with that. Seems to be working just fine. I'm guessing there's still quite a bit of moisture inside there because this is actually fogged up. I can actually see condensation on the inside of the plastic. That when I first wiped this and cleaned it, it looked really nice and clear, and now it's fogged up, and I can see that's actually underneath there. I don't know. This is one of those things I just think that if I was gonna sell it, I wouldn't get very much for it. I'm probably just gonna end up going in my drawer of spare indicators. It's working nice now. Hey, it's actually the following evening, and came back down here and looked at this indicator, and it cleared up completely. All that condensation went away. Still needs a little bit of cleaning done here, but I kind of stopped cleaning it only because I was worried about what was going on with it. But it seems to have completely dried out, and it's nice and clear, and it's actually still working pretty nice. So I think this is going to be a usable indicator. I also had a chance to do a little bit more research. It took a little bit of digging, because if you Google DATCON indicators, you're going to be hard-pressed to find any indicators of this style with this company's name on it. And I was just about to give up, and then I found a couple of threads and forums that made obscure mentions of that name, and they were basically talking about how this DATCON company, apparently through mergers and acquisitions or whatever, had bought a couple of other companies, one of which was Hamilton, which I think is the same Hamilton that was the watchmaker. Apparently they made indicators back in the day. And also another company, I think the company is Dorset. So even though this says DATCON Instrument Company, I did find a listing for an indicator with a similar part number. So this 2CN00-10, what you're going to do is completely leave out DATCON and just put in the 2CN100, leave the -10 off so that you can cast a wider net, and just put indicator on there so that you ignore a lot of other weird stuff that comes up. All right, so I was able to find current and previous auctions. This is the only indicator I could find like that. This is a Dorsey. I kept saying, what, Dorset? Dorsey, Dorsey. I also did find a reference to Hamilton indicator with a similar part number. This is a -05. It's a kit. It's got several pieces in the box, but if I look at this indicator up close, you can see that that's actually my indicator right there. And when you blow up this picture, it's kind of grainy and it's hard to see. But the interesting thing is where it says Dorsey Gauge Company, it actually looks like almost like a rectangular label that they stuck on there, as if like they put it over a name that was on there previous. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So that's a little bit of the mystery solved, but it is definitely an uncommon indicator. So as far as value goes, I really don't know. So it's probably going to just, like I said, it'll probably stay in the collection. I actually kind of like these ones with the secondary dial like that. I don't know why. The reality is I almost never need an indicator of this style. So I was digging through this guy's boxes and I came across a couple of Chucks, and I kind of dismissed one of them right off the bat because it was a size I already have and I don't need another one, and I just assumed it was going to be too much money. But then when I saw what kind of a good deal I was going to be able to get on some of this stuff, and that I was going to bundle it together, I went back and I took a shot at, and this one, okay, this is a number 3 Morse taper on here, so this actually fits the tailstock in my Vernon lathe. Not that I need another one. Well, that's the other thing too. I just checked. This is a Jacobs number 3A, so this is not the ball bearing series Chuck. This is the I don't know, non-ball bearing one, I guess you would call it. It seems to work pretty decent. The jaws aren't horrible. It's not nice and smooth. I mean, again, this was sitting out in the rain. I actually haven't even gotten around to putting any lube on this thing since I got it back. This is the key that was stuck in it when I got it. It is a Jacobs key, so I think it is the correct key. It's just a little tough to turn. Like I said, it's you know, it's seen better days. Jaws are by no means perfect, but I got this for $10. Still thought that was okay. And again, I figure I'm into this for 10 because I bundled it, and I spotted this puppy. This is where the money was, I figured, right? So I first, when I first asked him about it, he said, "Is that the one with the broken jaw?" Because I had scooped it up and looked at it so quick I didn't even notice. I said, "Oh yeah, busted jaw on it." So this is the Jacobs ball bearing. This is an 18N. Number 18N, so this is capacity on this is 1/8 inch to 3/4 inch. It's got kind of a light Morse taper arbor on it, and the tang is busted off, so that should be changed. And of course, it's got a broken jaw. Now, normally I wouldn't bother with this because of the broken jaw. I already have one of these. I think I have one of these, either an 18 or a 20. And but then I realized, because with the broken jaw and everything, I ended up getting this for $5. So that's a steal for $5, even with the broken jaw. And I think I've seen some guys on YouTube actually do the job of putting new jaws in these things and making them, really nice chucks again. It's a good quality chuck that just needs a little bit of TLC. They make special wedges that go in here, and that they go in that slot right there, and they're for popping these arbors out of these things. I don't have any. So this is probably gonna, I don't know I haven't decided yet what I'm gonna do with that. Yeah, well, I'll have to think about that. Oh, look right here on eBay. For a mere $159.95, I can get the Chuck Nut and Jaw kit, 5-piece kit for the 18N. Wow. So yeah, the trick here is to find, occasionally you'll find a new old stock Jaw kit come up, for less money. There's one for a 16N and they want $99.92 for it. That's new old stock. Here's somebody selling a whole bunch of parts, just used it's pieces of some 18Ns by the looks of it. Looks like there's enough stuff to put enough parts from two. $90 or best offer. So that's going to be a little bit tough. I think I might just sell this as is, pass it on down the road. Oh, and I almost forgot. Yeah, that also included an original Jacobs Chuck key. I think this Chuck key alone used trades for like 15 or 25 bucks. So the Chuck key alone was well worth the $5 I gave for this. Again, I don't know exactly what I gave for this because this was bundled, but when I break it down in the end, it ends up, working out to be apparently that. This actually is operating a lot more smoothly than I thought it would. This was in the same box of rain, like the Grateful Dead said, a box of rain. Anyways, enough playing around with this stuff, right? All right, let's show the last item in the box. Well, one last thing about this Chuck. One spritz of PB Blaster on the jaws worked in and out a couple of times and wiped off the excess, and now it's working smooth the way it should. So there's nothing wrong with that Chuck. See what this draw says? More drill chucks. So this is just my overflow. This is where I've been throwing the drill chucks I've been accumulating that I don't have a dedicated place for. This one looks similar. What is this? This is the number 14. What did I say this one was? That's a number 3A. Huh. It's an interesting change in nomenclature. It goes from a 3A to a 14. That's a funky one there, huh? I think this is a Rome. Forgot what that one is. All right. And so the last item that I bought in this bundle from this particular dealer, last time I saw one of these was at an estate sale I went to, and got there really early, and I got in and I scooped some really good deals. That's where I got my Hammond belt grinder, and I did get some other nice stuff there. But while I was scooping deals on that, a guy ended up getting this item. I think he got it for 40 or 50 bucks. Now I have my own. It's a belt lacer. It looks just like the one that I missed out on at that estate sale, but I don't know whether or not it's a different brand or not. I'm also not sure why there's a piece of belt stuck in here. I don't know if that's like just the way they stored it or what. The handles just fit in here like this. For those of you who don't know what this is for, on old belt-driven machinery that uses wide leather belts like this, there's two ways you can join the belts. The ends can be cut at an angle in a certain way, and then the edges glued together. And I guess they did that in the old days. I think they used like horsehide glue or something. It was really, really strong. I don't know if they can still do that today. I'm sure there's some sort of a synthetic glue now that does the job. But the more common way was to use lacing. So lacing is like this interesting metal finger type deal. And what you did was you actually used a machine like this, and it crimped that lacing together and joined the two sides of the belt. I don't know if I can get this out or not, because I actually don't even know how to use one of these things. It's funny, I thought for sure this was going to be a nameplate to tell me the name manufacturer, but this actually says important oil often Do lacing in center of press, number 3-6 IN period, so that must be a 3 to 6 inch. And then there's a number, looks like a serial number, 39760. But as far as who makes this thing, let's see. I'm sure if I compare the way this looks to others I find online, I could probably find out who manufactured it that way. But I offhand do not see any other identification on this thing. So let's see. I guess if I pull up on this, that'll let this fall. There we go. And that lets that fall open. Okay, and I can remove. Yeah, I actually don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Okay, I see. All right. So you pull this pin out. That lets this come out. So that is the lacing I'm speaking of right there. So the other end of the belt would have fingers similar to this that would be crimped into them, and then you end up with some sort of cording that goes in here and acts as does the job that pin was just doing. My initial thinking is I'm going to probably offer this for sale or trade to somebody that can use it more than I can, only because right now I only have really one machine. Is the Vernon lathe is the only thing I've got that uses this type of belting. And the reality is the belt on there is okay, and if I do replace it, I'm probably just going to have one made up. Now, one of the shows I go to, there's a guy there at every show, and he's got one of these machines, and that's what he'll sit there and he'll make any size belt you want. So he's basically got a little cottage industry of making belts for people who don't have this machine. I just don't think having this machine sit on the shelf for years between times when I actually need to make the occasional belt is a very sound investment. So I think I'm into this thing for $20. So that's why I figured, you know what? I wasn't going to let it sit there in the rain. Not for $20. Yeah, so a quick look on eBay, and the majority of the belt lacer tools this style are made by a company called Clipper. One of them I could clearly see it was marked Clipper on this badge, where this one isn't marked. So either they're like the company that made these and this is one of theirs, or it's possible that this is a competitor that made one like it. But that style with the two handles like this that come up and reminds me of the old rabbit ear antennas. Now see, a lot of people aren't going to know what that reference means. Rabbit ear antennas. That was back in the day. You bought a TV set. In the box with the TV, it came with a couple of antennas. Actually, if you go far enough back, the early TVs, they called them portable color televisions. They had a handle on the top so you can move it from room to room, because you didn't have a TV in every room like you do today. You had one TV for the whole house, and you moved it around if you wanted to watch it somewhere else. And on those TVs, some of them had built-in telescopic rod antennas that you pulled up. And there was almost always two of them. And you basically manipulated them for the best reception of the local television broadcast channel, which was completely free of charge. It was, the airwaves were free. You didn't have to pay a dime to anybody to receive that staticky, ghosty picture. All right, so anyways, other than one anomaly on eBay where one of these sold for like $31.50 because only a few people bid on it, for the most part, these tend to sell around $100. And I saw one it even sold for $200. So, anywho, I don't think I'm ever going to figure out who makes this. Although I'm sure if I do due diligence and I look at enough Google photos, I'll probably be able to find one that's exactly like this with this cam mechanism and everything, the way it ratchets into place, and I could probably figure out who makes this thing. But that's going to be it for this lot. Then I moved on to another vendor.